Well, hello everyone. Back to do Chuck's challenge. First thing I'd like to say is this is probably not going to have too much drumming in it because it's mainly about how I even became someone who I would call myself a drummer, I guess. And it all started back in the early part of 1980. I was 13 years old and Permanent Waves came out. And in February, there was an arena across the river from us in Detroit called Joe Louis Arena where the Red Wings played. And Rush had the auspicious beginning to be the first band to play a concert at Joe Louis Arena. And that was for the Permanent Waves album. And I remember it was a Sunday night. And on Monday morning, all the big guys, I was in grade 9 at the time, they had concert jerseys on from Permanent Waves, and it was kind of the jersey with the black sleeves and kind of a yellowish, but almost black and white with the cover of the album on it, with the red writing. And we were just sitting there looking at the grade 11 and 12s, going, wow, those are cool shirts. I wonder who this band is. They were all gathered together on Monday morning at the lockers. And then I never really thought about it again until 2 weeks later. It was March break, winter break, spring break, whatever you want to call it. And my dad had traveled a lot for business, and he took me and my friend John on a trip up to Niagara Falls, which is about 4.5 hours away. And what he did was he dropped us off and he went and did his 6 or 7 hours of business, and then he picked us up. So we were hanging out in Niagara Falls all day. But the interesting thing about that and how that relates to this is that he got a hold of a cassette of 2112 from a big guy that he worked with, and I think the guy was 17. But he played the drums and he had the whole Tama Neil Peart set. And he said, here, listen to this. So we had a brand new Oldsmobile my dad was driving for his business. And it had one of those cassette tapes where you put it in and you can play either side. So we put it in and it was rewound to side one. And all of a sudden we heard, all that ethereal space music at the first 46 seconds, and then bum 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 bum, and and then 20 minutes later we were both sitting there and I was looking in the mirror going, what was that? So I reached over and I pressed the rewind button. It went all the way back. I pressed play. My dad kind of looked at me like, really? Meanwhile, it's 6:30 in the morning and it's still dark out. We're driving down the highway, and we listened to this whole thing again. So at the end, I went to reach for the rewind. My dad said, don't even think about it. And he turned the radio off. So he said, you can listen to it on the way home, but I'm not listening to that again today. So it was kind of humorous. But so John and I proceeded to talk for 3.5 hours about what we had just heard twice. And we didn't really even know what we had heard. I had heard Spirit of Radio and Free Will and maybe Natural Science on the radio, but again, it was just so far away from anything that I could grasp as something that I might like in the future. I mean, I did like it, but whatever. So then we came home and we listened to it again, and he gave the cassette back to his buddy. And I never really thought about it until a few months later. I was in the library in the high school, and I noticed that they had albums that you could borrow. And I asked the librarian, can I look through these? Can I borrow these? And she said, oh yeah, sure, no problem. So I looked through and I found one Rush album. It was Fly By Night, which happens to be, for me, the first Rush album. And so I borrowed it. And I listened to it, and it was just, it starts out with Anthem, and then, Best I Can, and there's By Tour, and there's Fly By Night, and it's just all different songs, but quintessentially it's Rush, and here I am, my name's Neil. And again, it was just so busy and so far from anything I could even grasp trying to ever play on the drums. And oh, by the way, I did not start drumming until 1987, okay? I was 21. So, but I was like a kid who wanted a pet that could never have a pet because his dad hated pets. So I kind of had to dream, and I played on my laundry hamper and whatever I could get my hands on. I had a pair of drumsticks, but I had nothing to hit. So I just hit whatever I could. And so then, the next year, Moving Pictures came out. And my mind was fully blown by that time. Because we were fully ensconced in the arcade life. And at the arcade uptown in our little town, all four of the first, Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta, YYZ, Limelight, all four of those were on the jukebox and in rotation 24 hours a day. Everybody loved this band. I didn't know they were Canadian. I didn't have any idea what the story was. I was still only 14 and a bit. And I was just like, I knew there was something special about this drummer. And, of course, the band itself. But there was something out front and musical and rhythmic at the same time. And, like, super good chops, but at the same time tasty. And he wasn't stepping all over the singing. And it was just incredible. Again, I paused. Guys went to school, were at school, went to concerts. I wasn't old enough to go to concerts because my dad said, you can't go really until you're 16. So, although I did go to a couple concerts when I was 15, but he doesn't know. So, that, we chewed on that for a year and a half, and then in November I was over at a friend's house of 1982, and Signals was out just a few weeks before that. And like Subdivisions was like my life. Of course, I was playing Tempest every day, and I lived in a subdivision just like everyone else I knew. And we were in the backs of cars and then the basement bars and all that stuff, and that was us. So that really hit home, and that's when I really started sort of getting into Rush. And I was over at a friend's house in November of '82. And they said, her older brother came home and said, I got 10 tickets to see Rush. Anyone want to go? And I'm like, yeah, I want to go. So I went to see Rush. That was my first Rush concert. And I didn't really know. Like, I just sat there. I didn't know who to watch. I didn't know what really drumming was. And then I just endured it, and it washed over me. I didn't know any of the songs except for maybe Subdivisions and a couple from Moving Pictures. But they played, the older stuff from the 70s that I had never even heard before. But I like that too. So let's fast forward to March of '88, again on spring break. This time the same friend and I went to Niagara Falls, but I was driving this time because I had a license. So we went there, and it was March break was early that year. It was in February, the last week of February. So it was snowing, like blizzard conditions, and we got there no problem. But on the way home, it was just ridiculous. But he bought the cassette, and I bought the album version of Signals, and then we would share because we didn't really have a convenient way of taping albums to cassette because none of us, we didn't have great stereos. We did the hold the cassette recorder up to the speaker recording. That was our mixtape scenario. So we listened to the Signals all the way home from Toronto, which is about a 4-hour drive, and we by the time we got home we knew all the songs. But again, I hadn't even thought of getting a drum set. I mean, I dreamed of it, but I hadn't thought of it. Because I said to my dad a few times, hey, I really want to get a drum set. And he says, no, it's too loud. I don't want to put up with that. So I never got one. And then, but I was kind of learning the drums because I was becoming a huge Rush fan. And I was air drumming. I had, you know, the snare on my steering wheel. The feet were on the clutch and the gas and the brake and whatever. I was playing in my car constantly. I used to go out driving just so I could play air drums and listen to the stereo. So then, in the meantime, I kept doing that. But, you know, let's see now. Then it was Grace Under Pressure, which was pretty much most Rush fans went, what is this? It was kind of a lot of people got off the bus at that point. A lot of people got on the bus at that point. A lot of people who were already Rush fans went, well, okay, I guess they've pretty much done something different each album, so this is really different, but I'll stick it out. So then Power Windows came out, and that was just it was so far advanced, and in terms of songwriting, and especially the drums and the sound. To me, it's my favorite album from Rush, and it's just a perfect album. There's 8 motherfuckers on that album that were just perfect, and the lyrics are good. The drumming is like up here. You probably can't even see my hand, but I couldn't even dream of trying to even attempt to play that. And then Hold Your Fire came out, and that was just a few months before I rented a drum set when I was 21 years old. Which, ironically, my dad came home and said, oh, you got a drum set, did you? And walked back upstairs, and I was like, oh, why didn't I do that 8 years ago? But whatever. So I was way far behind, so I knew how to drum, kind of, but the independence was not there, obviously. I could play, you know, that kind of thing. But I couldn't even dream of playing any Rush that I had heard before without really looking into it and thinking, I wonder what I can play, without really completely blowing any expectations I had of trying to play Rush. You know, if I would have tried to play Tom Sawyer for the first song before playing AC/DC, I would have probably quit drumming after about 8 minutes. So I didn't do that. But since Subdivisions was kind of my formative introduction to Rush, where I really got into all the songs and I knew them all, and then from then on I was in time with all the albums being released. So I bought all the old back catalog, of course, but from Subdivisions on, I was kind of on the bus, so to speak, for each album. And I remember where I was every time that I listened to an album release or whatever, and it's a great memory. Anyway, so I decided, all right, after the first year of drumming, I thought, okay, I'm going to try some Rush. So I started thinking, well, gee, what can I play? You know, and I see this question all the time on YouTube and in Rush Facebook pages. I'm a new drummer. What's an easy Rush song to start? It's like, yeah, there's not really any, really. So here's my advice, and this is what I used, is when I try and learn a song, whether it be Rush or anybody, I listen to the song and I try and pick out the parts that are going to present me difficulty. So, for instance, as Don said the other day when he was doing the two-handed subdivision, where the offbeat ride and the constant eighths on the hi-hat. This this is what it sounded like when I tried it the first time. So it goes. I can never play without music. So it goes. Let's try that again. See it, it was, which is not what it is. It's basically, so I thought, well, what is he doing? And I noticed that he was playing, and in between the eighth notes, he was playing a quarter note. So it was double time, I should say. So it's kind of, here's how I developed it. I thought, okay, well, I'll play an eighth note ride pattern. So I'll go like this. Okay, so then I got the bell pattern, and then I took my stick off and I hit my knee instead. So it's, that's basically the pattern. And then eventually it was, let's try that again. Okay, so that's how I sort of looked at every drum part. What's going to be hard in this song? So, you know, so then I looked at signals and I thought, oh, what can I play in signals? Digital Man, forget it. There's no way I can play that when I was 21, because it just the first two bars alone is like, and then there's the shuffle. What the hell is a shuffle? I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So I wasn't about to attempt that song. And then there was Losing It, which is, you know, to me, it was such a beautiful song, and the lyrics were distracting for me because they're so good. And I was studying English literature at university, so I was really into that song particularly. And also, the violin was completely off-putting because it was just so different and, again, beautiful for that song. So I can't play that song. And there was some independence and issues that I couldn't overcome as well, which just comes with time, obviously. And I hadn't mastered all that stuff that Neil was famous for. So that was out. Countdown was kind of like they said it was, like, you know, it was my Christmas vacation or my summer vacation. So I wasn't really hot on that one. New World Man was a bit sprightly, and I wasn't really into it, although now I am. And it also had a couple of independence issues that might seem trivial now, but back then it was like, I don't know if I can do this. So, you know, this was basically the first time I can remember where Neil did the he's a crap out of that on After Image on the next album, and subsequently he used it all over the place. Power Windows, you know, in the Manhattan Project, same thing. Even at the start. So, and then, you know, New World Man. It's all the same pattern. So I hadn't really worked that away yet, so that was out. Analog Kid was probably doable, but it was kind of fast, and I hadn't developed an ear yet to really pick out what was going on, because I remember trying to play it and thinking, there's no way he can be playing that. And I found out later, of course, he wasn't playing that. So I was doing way too much work for myself. So I decided, okay, I'll try chemistry, because it's all 4/4, and there's nothing really difficult in it, and it's got some cool drum fills. But there were two things that were kind of these sticking points. One was, you know, it goes, where it goes da 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 da. So it's going. But it's something like that. Anyway, the idea is you have to put the bell in a certain place, and you have to solo with your left hand while playing intermittent beats on your foot. So that was kind of a little bit of independence that I needed to develop, but it came easy. And the way that I straightened it out was I added eighth notes to the song, so it was. So, and then I just took them out. So I kind of I put my own metronome in there so that I could play the beat. And I know this is all wrong, because I can never remember stuff without listening to music. So I'm just trying to give you an indication of how I approach trying to learn stuff. And it's obvious that I can play the songs because I've got 300 and something videos up, but I really don't have a good memory to play stuff without the music. If I have the music, I can play anything. But without the music, I just cannot think of anything. And so that's where I lack. So I'm just trying to demonstrate how I approach a song and how I approached it when I didn't really know how to drum. So again, and there was another thing, as Don alluded to the other night, where Neil likes to play, let's say, 5 on the toms and then a quick left hand on those crash. So it's. So that was the only other thing that presented me a little bit of an impediment, because quite frankly, I'd never hit my left hand on a cymbal at the end of an even pattern and my right foot at the same time. So, you know, that is difficult, especially since there's a triplet to begin it and then 2 eighth notes. So it was difficult to understand that, but it was just one fill, and it was just, okay, I know what I'm hearing, I can play that, and then now I have to coordinate my feet and my hands to do that. So that was another difficulty, and there's always a so there you have it. That's my introduction to Rush. That's how I started, and I still, to this day, take the same approach to trying to learn a song, which is I listen to it and I try and pick out, okay, that's going to give me a problem. And then I try and practice the hell out of that little part and then put it into the song and execute the song with that part. And then it doesn't seem like that it's a hard part, because the rest of the song is kind of straightforward, but there's always these 3 or 4 little things in each song that Neil played And in many songs, there's 100 different things. But once I learned to have a better ear and figure out, oh, okay, I know how to do that. I know how to make that sound. That was the problem. Like, I could give you a million examples, and I will, but those are for other videos. So, my first introduction to Rush on the drums was Signals, specifically Chemistry, and then shortly after, the rest of the other 7 songs. And once I was the most proud of myself the day that I figured out how to play the weapon. Just the beat itself is just mind-blowing, but it's so easy and trivial now that I know how to do it. And so anyway, I'm gonna edit this up and get rid of the crap, and hopefully it's instructional or interesting, and if you've already tuned out, then you won't hear this anyway. So see you later, and look forward to doing a crap load of more videos with drumming in them, and the drumming will be right this time. So have a good night, happy Easter, see you later.